Whoa, I think this is going to be good. Right, so it's been a little while since the last video, and I've got the other side's inner wheel arch done finally. It was not as bad as this one, so there wasn't a whole lot to show, but that's all cleared away now. The welding's done, and today is the day we're finally putting the underseal on, and that should enable me to move the project forward and start reassembling, so I'm very much looking forward to that. To do the underseal, I've picked myself up some Dinitrol 447 after a bit of research and getting some recommendations from people that know better than I, which is a nice rubberized elasticated coating that's going to go under the car nice and thick and protect it from stone chips and moisture and all of that. And this is supposed to be the good stuff. I've had a few recommendations of it. I've gone for light grey just to avoid the car looking like somebody's slapped on the black underseal that people do to cover over rust. So hopefully this will look a bit more professional. Not exactly OEM, because OEM's more of a beige, but grey will do, I think. Further to that, I've gone for a cavity wax, which is this Dinitrol ML, and this is a brown cavity wax which I'm going to spray into all the cavities in the chassis and things like that, just to prevent it from rusting from the inside out. So I think that'll be a good addition as well. I've also bought some of this Raptor seam sealant, which is just a brush-on seam sealant, which is nice and easy to do. It's got zinc in it as well. Also the 447 has zinc in, so it's slightly rust protective, so it's kind of all geared towards anti-corrosion. To apply the sprays, I've got a Schutz gun, and of course this attachment, so I can put the cavity wax into those deep areas. Should be quite fun this, hopefully not too messy. So before I got caught up in that wheel arch welding that was the last couple of videos, and also the jacking point welding, before I got caught up in all of that, I actually cleaned and de-rusted the whole underside of the car and sprayed on various primers, a mix of etch primer and epoxy, depending on what the problem was. So I've done all the rust busting really. Anything that's come back through with a few bits of rust, and some parts unfortunately I've redone off camera, just to make sure the job's really ready to go. I've also cracked open the seam sealer and done a bit of seam sealing work just to make sure it had plenty of time to dry before today. Didn't get any footage of that, sorry, but it wasn't that interesting. It just brushes on quite nicely, it's good stuff. Before I can fire up the big compressor and play with this gun, I need to mask all the threads and all the brackets and stuff like that I don't want to get thick underseal on, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. Right, so that's all the brackets and threads masked up now. So now I can charge up the compressor and start setting the gun up. It says on the spec sheet I need to run about 4 to 5 bar through the compressor through this gun for it to come out properly. So I've set it to about 5 bar. Right, I've got my PPE on and it's time to get this and the gun together and see how it comes out. Not even sure how this lid comes off, but I'm about to find out. Try not to cross thread it straight away. Whoa, I think this is going to be good. Right, I'm going to get under there. I'm going to start with all the awkward to get to bits, and then I'll do a couple of wider passes on the flatter surface areas. Hopefully get a nice even coverage. Let's see how it goes. Seems to be coming out quicker than I'd like, so I'm going to turn down the pressure. Right, I just knocked it down to 4 bar. Let's see how that goes now. that's the first can used up already. Had a little bit of an issue getting the used can off the gun, but nothing this couldn't help me with. Seems to be coming out quite a bit faster than I anticipated, so I'm going to try and turn down the pressure even more, maybe to about 3 bar, and see how it goes. Well, that turned out to be a lot more challenging than I expected, but that's the rear underside of the car, now coated in Dinitrol 447. Reasonably happy with the result. Despite the tin saying it's for professional use only, it definitely is DIY-able, as you've just seen, but I do have some pointers to help you make a good job of it if you try this yourself. Firstly, no matter how you set the compressor, it comes out incredibly fast. So if you've got the gun too close to the thing you're trying to coat, you will build up and create a run almost immediately. Luckily it didn't happen too much for me, but as you can probably tell, with not much space between the car and the floor, you need to keep that in mind to keep the gun further away. And secondly, and this is probably my top tip, the stuff dries ridiculously quickly, so if you're dawdling trying to set the gun up and dial it in like I was, you'll find the shuts gun gums up incredibly fast, and then you have to strip it down and clean it out, and whilst you're in the middle of it, that's a world of pain. So my advice is, don't mess about, work fast with it, don't try and get the dregs out of each tin, just change them swiftly and continue. Lastly, I'd always get a can more than you think you need. 3 cans was about the right amount to do this area, but because I wasted a bit trying to set it up early on, there are a couple of areas which got a bit too light a coating. I would have liked another can really, but it is what it is. Luckily it's nowhere really important, so I'm not going to dwell on it. I should also mention that the stuff travels far and wide, so make sure you've masked well, because I've got it on my sockets and on my door, and that was definitely not my intention. So luckily thinners seems to shift it, but even then it's quite stubborn, which bodes well, to be honest. And now the 447's had about a week to dry. It's gone quite solid, which is good. It's got like quite a hard shell coating on it, which seems excellent. I've added a bit of extra seam sealer onto the vulnerable areas just for peace of mind. And the next thing to do is move on to the ML cavity wax, which is the next job. So let's get it set up and crack on with that. That's good already. I hate these things. Right. No, I won't put a link to these suits in the description, don't worry. So I'm using the same shuts gun. I've cleaned it up as best I can, although it'll never be the same after the 447 to be honest. And I've got this cavity wax adapter for it, which has a fancy nozzle on it so that you can feed into cavities. It just screws in place of the nozzle, in place of the normal nozzle. So that's good to go. I'm using this Dinitrol ML corrosion protection, which is quite simply a cavity wax. Sounds quite thin. I've got it in brown colour, which I think will be as close to OEM as I'm going to get. Not really sure how it's going to go on, probably going to be very messy. Hopefully easier than the 447. Right. Looks like vinegar. Weird stuff. A bloody mess, but not quite as bad as the 447. Seems like I've got quite a lot of this bottle left, to be honest, so I bought twice too much. Luckily I have the front side of the car to do anyway, so it'll be fine. Because these lids aren't screw on, you can't really, they're not really designed for you to keep them. Yeah, I've definitely got most of that left in fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a rubber glove over this or something and hope it stays for 6 months or so, and then in the meantime I can use it on anything I need to. Bloody hell. Well, that's the ML cavity waxing, and in hindsight I'm not sure brown was the right choice actually, because it stained my lovely grey finish, but in the end hopefully it'll all be covered in road grime when the car's back together anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The wax was actually a lot thinner than I expected. It had the consistency of water basically. As you saw, it was running out of all the holes and making a right old mess. But I'm confident with that nozzle that it's got into every nook and cranny in all of the chassis rails and everything like that, so I'm pretty confident everything's coated. I think given a few days to dry off, I suspect it'll evaporate into a nice thin protective film on everything it's touched, which is great. I've put links to everything I've used in the description if you're interested in doing this yourself, so check that out. On a final note, some of the more eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that I've refinished the brake lines and the fuel line under here as well. Just surface corrosion in the end, so they're actually looking brand new, which I'm really quite pleased about. Anyway, we're actually approaching the point of reassembly on this rear end now, finally. So if you're interested to see how that goes back together, please do feel free to subscribe. Hit the like button as well if you don't mind. Thank you very much for watching.